Hey everyone, it's Isaya. Welcome. This is another episode of my podcast, Isaya's Inspiring Evenings. And this is the last episode of a series that I'm doing with the amazing Rie Pearson. Hi, Rie.
Hi.
And this series is called Exploring Relationship Red Flags. So this is episode 9 of a 9 episode series. So if you've not listened to any of the other episodes, maybe you want to do that. So this series is a discussion about the early warning signs of unhealthy, relationship dynamics, the psychology behind red flag behaviors, and how we can interrupt said patterns before they escalate into harm. These conversations happen live and then shared in my podcast and anywhere else the guest feels like sharing. Before we go too deep into today's topic, I want to reintroduce Rie for every one of you. So, Rie Pearson lives overlooking the sea and describes herself as being on the edge. A police officer for 27 years, with focus on policy and how the police deal with partner abuse, Rie specialises in domestic abuse, stalking, and safeguarding. Her post-policing career has continued with directorships with several community interest companies, all focused on those specialisms. Rie's book, Be Kind, No Excuses, is a guide for teenagers and parents to raise awareness of the red flag behaviors that are a precursor to abusive behaviors in relationships. Her mission is to flip the discussions on violence against women and girls and talk about the real problem, the majority of abuse being perpetrated by men who are violent towards others, women, men, or children. Be Kind, No Excuses is now a community interest company as well. And Rie is finally the co-creator of WOW, Women Only Wellness Ltd, which creates safe spaces for women and girls to come together and step into their own power through learning that self-care is not selfish. This episode is called Aggression and Threats High Risk Red Flags. Obviously, we're going to get there. We have been discussing a lot about the idea that domestic abuse is often thought to be physical violence, but actually there is much more to it. Now, when it gets physical, the danger gets higher, obviously. So we have to address that as well. From your experience, my first question would be, is the violence early on, or can it be early on, or
It,
is it
it,
always later on?
no, it can be. It can be. But in my experience, and I'll give you an example, I was talking to a lady many years ago who had been engaged for 3 years. And she was older than I am now then. So we were talking like 20
Mhm.
years ago. And she said that she'd been engaged for 3 years. They got married. And on their wedding night, when they closed the bedroom door, he punched her in the face. And he
Nice.
said, "You will behave yourself, or that's what you'll get." Now, she had never experienced any physical violence before, but had I had time to sit down with her and ask her about the relationship in the run up to the wedding, I am sure there would have been indicators.
Signs, yeah.
Now, very rarely, I imagine there'll be people listening to this who say, "Well, I didn't get any red flag behaviors. I didn't experience anything. It was out of the blue, became physical immediately." And I'm sure that must happen too. But I think from the women that I've spoken to, and there are many, the red flags are there before the physical violence
Of course. Mm.
manifests in whichever way it manifests. And physical violence isn't just physically assaulting you as a person, your body. It could be punching the door, punching the wall,
Mm.
clattering around in the kitchen, smashing things off the floor. That's also physical violence.
Of course. That's that's I can very clearly see my grandfather breaking plates in the
Yeah,
kitchen because he was unhappy with whatever. I don't think he was ever violent to my grandmother, um, directly to her, but
because he didn't need
the
to be.
the feeling of being in a dangerous
Yeah,
environment was very
yeah,
clear for me. Very, very
yeah, yeah.
clear.
That type of physical violence is a warning marker. I'm smashing this plate, but if you do not do as I want you to do, I can very easily smash you.
Mm.
That's the
Yeah, this
message,
idea
isn't it?
that we end up, kind of on our toes, waiting for or
Yeah,
expecting or
yeah,
trying to avoid making him mad, as in,
yeah. So in the
um,
UK, we call it walking on eggshells.
yeah, in
Yeah.
French
So
we
if
say
you're
walking on tiptoes.
walking on your toes, yeah, yeah. So if you're in a situation where you are modifying your behavior
Mm,
in order to prevent the escalation of their behavior, that's abuse.
yeah, this is a huge red flag. This is a
Huge. Yeah, yeah. But a lot of times, physical abuse will be lower at first,
yeah.
grabbing your arm and squeezing it so tight that you bruise.
Yeah, and and even the threat, like for your example, is enough to keep the
Oh,
control, and then
it's
to
about
have
the control.
possibly the woman or the girl behaving in a way that she will do anything to prevent more violence.
Yeah, because the person who knows their abuser the best is the person who is being abused. So
Hmm.
on the outside, it may look um that you're complying because they have the control of you. It's like being a dog being yanked on the chain, isn't it?
Hmm.
You've got the chain around your neck,
Mm.
and they might just yank it a little bit, but it's still the yanking a chain around your neck.
Yeah, of course. So what do we do when or are there are can we also address before we go into the what do we do? Let's stay a little bit more into the definition of it. What about manipulation, like suicide threats, or those things that
Yeah,
are, to me, are violent, even if they're not physically
yeah,
straight
yeah.
violence, but still. Do you consider that a physical?
Well, I think all abuse is physical on a cellular level because emotional abuse
Hmm.
affects your body on a cellular level. That's why so many women have got illness, arthritis,
Mm,
fibromyalgia, and stuff like that. So it affects your cells anyway. And I've often spoken to women who said to me, the way that their perpetrator behaved, um, because they were walking on eggshells and because they knew that a physical violence was coming, they just wanted him to get it over with. They just said, just do it, like get it out
hmm.
of the
Hmm.
way so that
Mm,
I'm not sitting here being so sort of
yeah.
wound up and waiting. Just get it out, just do it, which is absolutely heartbreaking. But
Yeah.
I
Very.
think the lead up, a lot of women I know, they would know that, say, on a Friday night, that when their partner came home, there was going to be physical violence and
Mm,
frequently sexual violence as well. So they would put things in
mm,
place to protect the children. So the kids would always stay at granny's on a Friday night and they
mhm,
wouldn't be in the house because they knew that this person was going to
mhm,
come in and so they have this sort of, there's an inevitability about the situation
mhm,
and it
mhm,
is going to happen because I used to ask when I was dealing with it as a police officer, I would say, can you tell me what led up to this? And they would describe the day or however
mhm,
long it took to build up to this inevitable violence.
mhm,
And I would say, at what point in the day did you know that this was coming? And there would be a point where there would be a point of no return, if you like, and
mhm,
they knew it was coming. And they would put things in place to safeguard the kids, to safeguard the pets, to make it this as limiting as a damage as it possibly could be, and
mm,
often only physically damaging to them and the
yeah.
property, because there would
Mm,
be, a door kicked off or
mm.
things smashed in the kitchen and dinner would be up the wall and
Yeah, I had a friend who was
you know
hiding the money,
yeah,
putting the kids away with the money,
yeah, yeah,
because
yeah,
otherwise he would take the money and go and drink,
yeah,
basically, more
yeah, yeah.
after
So
hit her to
yeah,
find the money. Then
then
so
go. Yeah, yeah. So there was
protecting other things
yeah,
to the
yeah, yeah.
expense of your own body, basically.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. And that's, safeguarding the people around you and protecting the people around you because you know this is gonna happen regardless. And then when things go through the family court, it's like, well, she's failed to protect. I'm like, well, you know, she actually sent the kids to granny's every Friday and did all the things that she could in the situation that she found herself in the moment. And it's, you know, and that's why we work on to educating people about, do you know, see these signs at the beginning, because down the line, I'm telling you, there are heartbreaking stories about family court and children being given to the perpetrator because society at the minute is, she's failing to protect. Nobody ever says, well, he just should be in jail, you know, like, oh, you know, he's got a really bad childhood, you know. And you know, if you look at it from that perspective, you know, lots of us have very difficult childhoods and we do not go on to perpetrate abuse.
No, not all of us.
No, like if violence bred violence, then women would be violent, wouldn't they? Because women are the majority of the victims. And then then you would go on to perpetrate. That's nonsense.
Yeah.
Violence doesn't breed violence. You know, violence is a choice.
Yeah. Of course. And let's get also another thing out of the way. Staying is also not a bad thing. It's not like, oh, why doesn't she leave? I'm like,
no. Statistically, leaving is more
safeguarding
dangerous
is
than
not
staying.
leaving.
Yeah. And also coming from the perspective, I come in to help and support people, whatever role I'm in along the timeline of my life at this time. And it is none of my business if that person chooses to stay. It is nobody's remit to tell that person to leave. And statistically, it's more dangerous to leave than to stay. And as I've said earlier, the victim knows the perpetrator more than anybody else. And she knows if she is going to die if she leaves. And I would say 99% of the time it's because he has told her that if she leaves, he will kill her and he will probably kill the children as well. And we see that. So staying is making a choice for safety. So when people come along and say, well, if it was that bad, I mean, I was like that, like 40 years ago. I was like, well, if it was that bad, why doesn't she leave? Because I knew nothing. And that's absolutely the truth.
Yeah.
I knew nothing about this. I was 22 years old. I was going into people's houses in the middle of the night where the woman would be standing there shaking. And then, you know, back then it was like he would get taken to his mother's. Why would you drop somebody off at another woman's house? Yeah. So then I used to, as I learned, when we had an arrest, because you can't get bailed out of the police station unless you've got somewhere to live, you have to have an address. And then it would be, because it was very patriarchal, well, you know, you can be bailed. Oh, I'll bail me to my mum's address, right? Bail me to my mother's address. I go, wait. So I would go off to the mother, bang on the door. Your Johnny says it's all right for him to have bail here. Is that all right with you? No. So because a lot of the time it didn't occur to us back then to ask her permission to have her adult son back in her house. So I would persuade the mother that it wasn't a good idea. So he would go to jail for a week.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he didn't have anywhere else to go. Why would you bail him to another woman's address? He's a twat. So, you know, so there's little things that you can do to protect people when you're working in a structure that is not actually really truly set up to protect people. So criminal, civil court, family court, they're not protection. They're a system, and it's a one size fits all system, and it doesn't fit women, basically.
No, and that's an afterthought almost.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of, you know, when you're either in the moment or in what you were describing, the escalation to the moment. Court can do nothing for you. Basically, you're there and you have to deal with
something has to happen before you go into the protection system. The protection system is an afterthought. And for lots of women, it's not an option. If you're a woman who's taking drugs, for instance, illegal drugs, and you have drugs in the house, you're never going to phone the police because the police get there and they go, I'm here for a domestic incident, but cocaine.
Mm-hmm.
And it becomes a whole other shit
Yeah.
show, doesn't
Mm-hmm.
it? And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, so those women don't even engage in the criminal justice
Mm-hmm.
system.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not there. You know, the criminal justice system is not there to protect, it's there to punish.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, yeah.
Of course.
So,
And
you
then the
know,
thing is, the punishment, it might be useful on one side, but
it's
what
too
does it
late.
do for me as a victim?
It's too
Nothing.
late. It's too late. And also you've got the added trauma of going through that system where everybody in the system, so you're with the prosecution who are really poor at communication because they're overwhelmed, because the money is from the government and the government doesn't give them any money. And then you've got the defense, which is sort of like the bad guys, and they will do anything to
Yeah,
win.
of course.
Because the criminal justice system, I don't know what it's like in other countries, you're innocent until proven guilty. And they will do anything to win because it's their reputation as a solicitor or as a barrister. Their reputation is on the line. And the more you win, the more work you get. So when you create an industry that makes a profit or a loss, you have lost the plot. So the criminal
Completely.
justice system, the civil system, and the family court system, all profit and loss. It's an organization there to profit and loss. So it's not about safeguarding at all. It's about money.
Yeah.
So don't get into it. Like, don't get into it. Like, you need to know about the red flags. When you meet somebody at first, you need to be honest with yourself.
Exactly.
Be
That's why
honest.
we've done 8 episodes on everything before it
Yeah,
actually gets physical,
absolutely.
because there
Yeah,
are
yeah,
so
yeah.
many red flags. So, indeed, women, girls who are listening to us, first of all, go and read Rie's book. Again, it's called Be Kind, No Excuses. You will find all the links to everything Rie and the book below or above or around this video. So first of all, go and read the book. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then, look at your life honestly. Kind of sit down and look at your life and see if this concerns you or not. I'm not saying that it concerns all of us, but it concerns so many of us at some time or another.
We
And
have,
so sorry,
sorry, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
I don't know where I was going, so you
All
go.
right, okay. So we have a system in the UK called Clare's Law, where you can apply to the police and say, what information do you have on this person that I've started to have a relationship with? And they will tell you the history of that person in terms of risk to you. But you can also, I mean, I did this for somebody that I know. She started dating a guy, and I was like, and I didn't know him, honestly. But my spidey sense was like, whoa, sticking up like that. So I did a Clare's Law, and the police didn't come to me because I wasn't the one at risk. They went to her and said, you need to know this about this person. So do that. Use that
That's a
in whatever
cool thing to
legislation you
use.
have in whichever country you're in. Use what you can to find out the history of that person. And if you were a friend who is concerned, use what you can to find out so that your friend can find out the history of that person.
If
Now,
you're a parent, same thing.
same thing. Yeah, same thing. But the system is only as good as what the information is already in it. So
Of course.
you will have people who perpetrate abuse who've never been reported to the police,
Of course.
especially at the younger end with teenagers. He's never been reported to the police for this because, it's all under the radar. They're just kids, but it's important to see that behavior. And what I would say in terms of, there's a program that was out recently called Should I Marry a Murderer? There's a program like why was no end of conversation.
Yeah.
How is it even TV about that? But I would say it's really important to know that the thing that they have done in their past is the minimum that you know that they are capable of.
Yeah.
So if they have been abusive in a previous relationship, they will be abusive in your relationship because that is who they are. When somebody
Oh,
tells
and
you
by
who
the
they
way,
are,
can I just go on a
them.
little tangent here? Because this is
Sure.
one of my pet peeves. If another woman comes and says, I've dated this guy, beware, do not go on thinking, oh, but that won't happen with me because he loves me more.
Yeah,
This is
yeah,
bullshit. An abuser is an abuser with
yeah,
anyone.
absolutely.
So if a sister comes in, with all, because it's difficult to come and say to another woman, I've been a victim. But if she does that, for hell, for whatever is sacred in your life, believe her.
Believe her. Absolutely. Yeah. And you get that, don't you? You get that, oh, my ex is
Hmm.
crazy.
Hmm.
My ex is crazy. She doesn't let me see the kids. Now, I know we're focusing on
Hmm.
teenagers, and my ex-girlfriend's crazy, and people go, "Oh, she's crazy." And then what happens is they set up the narrative. They create a narrative around
Hmm.
their victim so that they can use that
Yeah.
narrative. So when
Hmm.
somebody comes to you and says, "Oh, I'm really concerned about Kate. She's having some mental health problems at the minute." Um, you need to speak to Kate and say,
Hmm.
Johnny said, you're not very well at the minute. How can I help
Hmm.
you?
Hmm.
And we're not all nice people. His ex
No.
she might be a horrible person,
Hmm.
but she doesn't deserve to be abused.
No.
Nobody deserves to be abused.
Hmm.
And it's,
Even the crazy ones.
yeah, so don't, if you know what their minimum standard is, you know that that's their minimum standard, and that is coming your way, girl. That is
Yeah.
definitely coming
And
your way. The
because
ex-girlfriend who can't who he sees the kids but doesn't pay maintenance for,
mm,
in the future, your kid is going to be
mhm,
that kid
yeah.
because
Mhm,
that's their pattern.
mm,
But they follow a
mm.
pattern. That's
No,
how I could
because
write a book.
we go back to, we've discussed that before, because you are nothing special in this. He's
Don't
got a
take it
pattern. He will
personally.
apply it to anyone.
No, never
You
take
are
it
nothing
personally
special,
because it's not
despite
about
what
you.
he says
Well,
repeatedly.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
am nothing special. If I'm the victim of a perpetrator, an abuser, he has got a pattern. He will apply to this pattern to whoever will fall into his paws, basically.
Of course,
Uh,
of course. And it's a thing. And I wanted to talk about actually fight, flight, fawn, and freeze.
yeah, let's.
So I think a lot of the time it's difficult to fight because we're now living in societies where legislation rules. And if you fight, you can find yourself in a lot of world of trouble.
Hmm.
And also in the UK, the law in terms of self-defense is very much not in favor of women. Because if you are being physically assaulted by a man in your home, how are you going to fight back? The chances are you're going to pick something up to fight back because you are not able with your hands and your feet to
Hmm.
match his strength. And you might pick up a knife, you might pick up an ashtray, you might pick up a bottle of wine, and use that as a tool because you have to in the moment because you aren't as strong as him and he's beating seven bells out of you. But
Hmm.
the way that the legislation is written in the UK is it has to be proportionate. And the
Oh,
way that the
mm,
court has interpreted that is if you pick up a weapon, that is no longer proportionate, even though you are a woman and he is a man and is generally
yeah.
physically
Hmm.
more able to beat seven bells out of you than
Hmm.
you are to beat seven bells out of him. And I'm not saying that some women couldn't do that.
Hmm.
Certainly,
Of
if
course.
somebody came at me, I would have a go. But that's my training from the past. And I would take delight in kicking somebody in the neck as if they were coming out. But in the moment, you have to be very careful. And there are women serving jail sentences because they have
For
stabbed somebody
fighting,
who
for
died
defending themselves.
because for defending themselves because the law of self-defense is disproportionately in favor of men in those
Mm.
circumstances. So you have to be careful. In terms of flight, where are you going to go? Where are you going to run to? Which house are you going to go and live in? How are you going
Mm.
to take your kids? It's difficult to just bugger off and find a roof somewhere to sleep under. So that's
Yeah.
really,
Mm.
not going to happen. So that I think the majority of victims of and survivors of abuse, it's either freeze or fawn.
Mm.
And I think the majority of that is formed. So we keep the peace. We do what we're told. We don't speak up because otherwise we end up in that fight situation.
And that is
Uh,
safeguarding of
and
me and the
fawning,
kids, the pets and everything by fawning.
fawning is a safeguarding measure, isn't it?
Mhm.
It's you putting the
Yeah.
defenses in place to make sure that yourself and those around you comply to what that perpetrator's demands are, whatever they are. And I think in the 21st century, that's outrageous.
It is outrageous. At the same time, I would go and say that if you can, if you're in this situation, if you can do the fawning and at the same time, try and find ways to slowly, safely organize
Yeah.
your exit.
Put your ducks in a
Of
row.
course. Yeah.
Yeah. So first of all, remember that there are red flags. If somebody tells you who they are,
Of course.
believe them. Listen to what the red flags are. And when you see them, have a conversation with somebody who's safe for you to have a conversation with. And I think I've mentioned this previously. If you're already in a relationship with them, they've got kids and you've got kids, be careful who you have that conversation with, because a lot of people will say, oh, but he's a good dad. He is not a good dad. Domestic abuse is child abuse, and I will die on that hill.
Mm-hmm.
So when somebody comes along and says, oh, he'd never hurt the kids, though, he already has.
Of course he has.
So don't have a conversation with that person.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure the person understands what you need. So when you see the red flags, engage. If you're already in it, start getting your ducks in a row to get out of it, because it is very dangerous to leave.
Yeah.
Because of the control.
Of course. So the fawning is kind of a good idea if you use it to keep the peace while.
Yeah. And another one for parents. Don't teach your children to be people pleasers.
Oh, this is a big one.
The biggie. Because people pleasing is very dangerous.
Of course.
Because a perpetrator is a perpetrator is a perpetrator. And that will out.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no matter how much people pleasing you do, that perpetrator will abuse you. Because it's
Which
not about
means
you,
if
it's
you are
about
not, if you're not being brainwashed into being a people pleaser, the first instance of you reacting as a normal person, not a people pleaser,
yeah,
will it will show the perpetrator,
absolutely.
as in enlighten, put some light on it, and then you will
Yeah,
leave, because at
yeah.
that point it's not yet dangerous.
Say no.
But if
Say
you
no.
start by people pleasing very early on, as we were saying, we've discussed all the red flags, and what we see here when we end up with the situation where you're already in the physical violence stage is that it's really freaking difficult at this
Yeah,
stage. It's frightening, difficult. It's not safe to leave or to stay. Basically, it's
yeah,
unsafe,
yeah,
which means it's also important to listen to the first episodes and to actually look at the red flags very, very early on when
yeah,
you enter a relationship. For me, one of the things that stands out is this idea that we women will believe the men over the woman. So what you said, I have a crazy ex-girlfriend.
hmm
Ah, he says that. What does she say?
yeah,
But, or there's so many instances where I see that happening that I'm like, why don't you believe her in this? They've
yeah,
had an argument there, whatever. Why don't you believe her?
yeah.
And that
Because
is,
because
patriarchy brainwash for generations. But
brainwashing, yeah, where it's in our DNA now, and we've had this conversation ourselves about how difficult it is, how your mind just automatically, because of centuries of patriarchy, how your brain just
yeah, I mean, I
automatically
was
goes
watching
to
a slightly different topic, but I was watching a TV show the other day, stupid one, and there was this couple, and he was having an affair. The woman, the wife, attacked the mistress, like physically
Crazy.
attacked.
Crazy.
Always,
Yeah.
always.
Because, yeah.
He was the asshole
He's the
cheating on
asshole.
her, but
Yeah.
she's the bitch. I'm like, sorry.
Yeah. Don't
And this
don't
is
don't
also,
don't take my man. Don't take my man. Can I tell
mhm,
you, ladies,
mhm,
you don't need one. It's nice to have one if
yeah.
you've got a nice one.
Mhm.
It's lovely to be in a loving
Besides,
relationship. There's
he's not
nothing.
an object. He's not being taken. He's agreeing
Yeah,
to fuck another woman.
exactly. And it's like, and that is his standard. So when you think about it, he's been unfaithful to this woman who he's, I will be married to you for the rest of all
Mhm,
eternity until
mhm,
we die.
mhm,
He's made that promise to somebody, but he's gone and
mhm,
fucked you.
mhm.
And what's going to happen? He leaves her, he lives with you. If he leaves her,
And then again,
if he leaves
and
her.
then again. Mhm,
And then the next day you're the wife who and he's fucking somebody
mhm.
else
Yeah.
because that's
So,
his path.
in terms of domestic abuse or abuse in general, please believe the women.
Please believe the women, yeah.
Believe your
And
friends,
and you
the
find that,
ex-girlfriend, the ex-wife, the mother.
yeah,
Believe them when they tell you that this guy is dangerous or an asshole or unfaithful. Please believe them. I'm like, how come where, how much brainwash have we been in?
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. And
because
the
that's part of
problem,
the red flags, isn't it? Somebody actually coming, another woman coming to you and saying, you know, I was with this guy before and it's not a good idea.
yeah, yeah.
And then you
Years
ignore it. I'm like,
years
what?
ago,
you know.
yeah, when I was a police officer, when I first started in the role of domestic abuse, um, I would be speaking to women, I would be dealing with court cases, and we would find out through the grapevine that this perpetrator had a new partner.
Mhm.
Now, in terms of safeguarding, that's a big thing because that new partner may have children and also potentially she's his next victim.
Of course.
But the legislation meant that I couldn't tell her about him because Clare's law didn't exist.
Mm. Hmm.
Yeah. So we were restricted in terms of disclosure to that new woman, this other woman who had not been, as far as we were aware, subject to abuse at that point. So I would contact that woman and I would say, "Hello, I'm Rie Pearson. I'm a police officer. I'm a domestic violence officer, and I work with high risk domestic abuse cases. And I am currently working with this lady and this man." And she would say, "Well, that's my new boyfriend." And I would say, "Yes, I'm only working with high risk cases."
Hmm.
And that's all I would say. And then the next thing I would have him on the phone or he'd turn up at the police station. This my lass has kicked me out, this, that, and the other. And I'd go, "Yeah, 1-0 to me."
Hmm.
Oh, yeah. And then I would end up in a conversation with her about what had happened. And quite frequently the red flags were already present. He'd moved in really very quickly. He hadn't contributed financially. She knew that he wasn't contributing financially to his own children. She
I want
wasn't
you to have
aware
my
of she
babies.
wasn't aware that he was going to court for GBH. She wasn't aware of, and his ex-wife was a nutcase and wouldn't let him see the kids. I would say, no, no, it's the judge that won't let him see the kids.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
I would
Believe
have
the
to go,
women.
definitely believe the women.
Mm.
Yeah.
And if you're on the other end of that, so if you're the one who is able to tell another woman to beware, please do it.
Yeah. And if somebody comes to you and says that, your new boyfriend's an asshole, he used to beat me up,
Hmm.
don't
Hmm.
don't be like, "Oh my God, I'm jealous. His ex-girlfriend wants her boyfriend back." She doesn't.
She
She wants
doesn't.
you to not be beaten up,
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
and
And
all the
if
rest of
you're
it
the,
that goes with it.
yeah. So yeah, definitely, as we have seen, very important to try and avoid getting to the physical stage of physical abuse. And there are so many red flags. We've discussed some, of course, there might be others. And um, maybe we'll do some more episodes, but for now, this is it.
Thank
The
you,
one
Isaya.
thing that I would like to end with, and you will tell me what you would like to end with, but what I would like to end with is first and foremost, stay safe. There's no emergency for anything. There's no emergency to have a child with someone. There's no emergency to move in. There's no emergency to get married or to have a joint bank account or anything. Just, breathe. Nobody's dying, basically.
Yeah,
Nobody's dying. You're very much in love. Good for you. There's no emergency to merge with someone that you don't know.
yeah. 100% agree with that one. 100%. Slow it down. Take it slowly. Take it easy. There is no rush.
And listen to the people around, get to know his friends, his lady friends, maybe,
Does he have
if
any
there
friends?
are. Mm,
Does he have any friends?
mhm,
Who are his network? That's a really good point, actually.
mm,
Who does he hang out with?
mm. And if there's no one, I'd worry.
Yeah. But also, if there are some and they're all assholes, they're all
Yeah,
assholes.
of course. Yeah. Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big one for me. I remember meeting guys and thinking, oh my God, I don't want to be in
In this
that
crowd.
circle
Yeah, yeah.
anytime. So
And that
no, I
actually
can't.
frequently happens, doesn't it? Because they isolate you from your support network, but they suck you into theirs.
Mm-hmm.
So you
Bunch of
find that
assholes.
you find that you're hanging around the people that you're when you're married and you're hanging around with couples, those couples are people that he knows,
Mm,
not people that you know.
mm.
So yeah, that's one that I didn't realize many years ago,
Well,
but I know now.
so many. I'm telling you, we might be doing some more episodes. Ree, it has been amazing. Thank you so much.
It has
Um,
been. I'm very grateful, Isaiah, for your time, for your
I think
technology,
that, the
for
more
your
we can talk about these
conversation.
topics and the more awareness we can raise, possibly the less shit will happen to
Yeah,
women and
yeah.
girls and children and pets and, um, So, yeah, thank you very, very much. It has been amazing. For the listeners, if you have not listened to the other 8 episodes, go and do that. If you want to reach out to Ree to read her book, to get in contact with the Be Kind No Excuses CIC, if you want to come to any of the women only wellness events that happen at the end of June every year in Northallerton, UK, look at the links below, above, wherever, and reach out. These are amazing places to be. I've been to the WOW once. I hope to get there some more. It's an incredible place to be, to meet other women and kind of get into this community of people who believe that self-care is not an insult or a when the to-do list is done. And that self-care is also taking care of being safe.
Yeah.
Voila. Thank you so
Thank
much for everything. I will talk to you all soon. Bye for now. Bye.